days. It doesn't say, and the sons of God married the daughters of men, and they had giants. So that's what most of us read, but it says, and there were giants on the land in those days, and also after that.
Well, that took the fun out of it.
Whoever wrote Genesis chapter 6 knew about the second lot of giants. Hence, it's one of the bits of evidence Moses wrote Genesis chapter 6.
Well, that just took the fun out of that one. Okay.
What's
that just took the fun out of that one.
Yeah, I know. So you'll find the second lot of giants we have a lot more information on.
Yeah.
The second lot of giants is first mentioned in Numbers chapter 13, and then if you follow them, you'll find there's so much information recorded about the second lot of giants. Yeah. We know they are the descendants of Abba, and Abba was a Philistine.
Right.
The Philistines are Canaanites. The Canaanites are descended from Cain. Cain is a descendant of Ham. So therefore, it's a human aberration, not a demonic one of any necessity.
Yeah.
In the second batch of giants, which are equated to the first, there's no reference to demons coming down and mating with people.
Well, as along the devil trail there, how would the concept of a devil evolve? Again, that seems like that would have to come from the outside type of thing. But is he an unevolved human or a de-evolved human?
Again, you've got the big problem. If evolution is true, then we are just the product of the environment. We only record what's stored in hydrogen and whatever combination hydrogen's got to. We can't invent any concepts that aren't based on the reality that has become us. So if there is no demons, there's no demon gene, there's no demon hydrogen information. It's simply impossible.
Right.
So unless you have a real God and a real devil that sometime in the past or in the present you interact with, I mean, some of my friends are now Christians because they got involved with witchcraft and have frightened the daylights out of them because it was real. So they needed the real God rather than the lesser devil. So unless you have some sort of real basis, these sort of things can't evolve. It becomes nonsense. Hence, again, my challenge. If you think evolution is the explanation of everything, explain creationist, explain religion, because that's part of everything.
Well, John, isn't the proof of evolution, say, the seahorse? I mean, that thing looks like a horse to me. I don't care. I'm thinking he just jumped out and leaped. Come on now. I mean, how close can you be? That's what we call the seahorse.
One of our guys is actually a seahorse farmer, Craig Hawkins, and he's one of our research people. And I've got to admit, he's the only seahorse farmer. I didn't even know they grew seahorses for farming, but they do. It's a big industry, apparently. But it's really fascinating to look at the textbooks that he and his wife, because she did her master's in marine biology, and her textbooks basically say the modern seahorse is a descendant of the fossil ones, but largely through degeneration. And when you look at the fossil seahorses, and I deliberately went and got some fossil seahorses for Craig, and he said, they're just seahorses, but they've degenerated down to the present. So A, there's no evidence they've been anything but seahorses. B, there is evidence they've gone downhill. But C, when you look at the minimum stuff you need to be a seahorse, the thing that has always fascinated me, because they live along the coast where I live in Australia, is they swim upright. Whereas all the other fishes swim horizontally. B, the father has the babies, which many women think would be a really good idea. The female lays her eggs in his pouch, and then he fertilizes them and has up to 1,000 kids at a time.
Well, that sounds a little gay right there.
Yeah, that's right.
Is that seahorse he gay?
Say that again?
Is the seahorse, is he gay?
No.
Is that what it is?
He enjoys being egg deposited by mum, but then he has to bear the babies. And, when you think of, if you're going to start out as an ordinary female fish and a male fish, then you've got to reverse all of that to be seahorses, and then you've got to learn to swim upright. And so your whole balance system has to change, and then you have to learn to move your fin on the back in a way that's totally different from any other fish. And so, again, you'd never make it. You just can't evolve bit by bit. You've got to be a seahorse right from the start, and the fossil evidence tells us that. It's just again incredible evidence that things do produce their own kind, and they can devolve. They can go downhill, which is what your biblical account says has been the history of the world. But they never ever go uphill.
Well, I think the seahorse needs to get a California marriage license. By the way,
no, only if he married someone of the same sex. He never does that.
Well, okay, well, he may be gay, but he's not stupid. Well, no, he's not gay. He's because I don't know, a man, woman,
right.
having babies.
Yeah,
that's all
he's
weird.
Just a seahorse.
But listen, let me ask you
It's
though.
like the evolutionist who tries to argue we can get our morals from animals.
Yeah.
And then you notice that, female spiders mate with the male and then they eat them, and you think, gracious, that's not our morality. Yeah. And then male stallions treat women like dirt.
See, I'm not not happy with some of these insects that mate like a spider, like a black widow, eating the man after gives her babies and such.
Right. What kind of short jaw, eh?
Well, what kind of evolution is that? But anyway, as you're well aware, of course, that gay marriage has been accepted in California here in the States, and actually against the will of the people who voted against it, and against the lower courts that approved it. It was their Supreme Court that overturned everybody. That's the way we roll in this country. A couple of judges can just undo the whole will of a whole state or country. But we talked a while ago about the idea that the concept of God can't come from nothing. You can't see, say, a tree and you're an ape man and say, oh, well, God made that. I mean, it's somewhere that the idea that there's somebody outside your sphere. I mean, that seems like it's an external idea that had to come to you. So since nature doesn't show gayness, wouldn't that also be an idea that comes from out there somewhere, say the planet Demon or something?
Well, I've just done a new DVD on, are you born homosexual? Because it's one of the big questions I'm getting from high schoolers at the moment, and folks can get a review of that off our creationresearch.net. But you're quite right. All of these moral issues don't evolve, particularly if you're an evolutionist and you think, well, if males mate with males, their genes die out. So evolution is naturally selected against. There's no way it could ever appear on the planet if evolution was true. It will always be eliminated. So therefore it has to be an external source of information, either from a God who created us or a devil who hates God and is using us against him. So when you look at the God bit in Genesis where it says God made Adam and Eve, and you proceed from there, you discover that God consistently is only in favour of male and female, and hence the traditional laws of this country, which were Judeo-Christian, were in favour of a male-female marriage and opposed to any single-sex relationship at all. And you're quite right, the governments in some states are trying to overrule that and force gay marriages onto the American society. I hope you get enough strength in some of these elections to turn all those things around. But again, it's not something that you could ever dream up from evolution, because you would have been eliminated by evolution. So it's a moral choice.
Well, I say back to the analogy of the black widow mating with the male spider. As the male spider is getting eaten, I mean, for one thing, he's not saying, hey, you gay, or he's not saying, hey, you the devil. I mean, somebody observing that wouldn't be able to say, hey, there's gay right there. So that means being gay is okay. Or they wouldn't say, and they wouldn't, right, and you couldn't look at it and say, hey, there's the devil right there. I mean, you can't extrapolate that from either one of those. You can't extrapolate that from that.
No, it has to be a real observation, has to be a real choice. It's not something simply that happens at all.
Now, there are several planets that revolve the opposite direction, and doesn't that fly in the face of a Big Bang as the planets are ejected out, that they're all sort of spinning all the same way, like being thrown off a merry-go-round? But how does that account for the planets and some of the moons that are spinning in the opposite direction? How do evolutionists account for that?
Well, one of the first Americans who ever came to Australia was a physicist, and one of his favourite arguments was the structure of the solar